Hit that like and subscribe. We got some more juicy news here.
It affected me. And so I knew that I needed to somehow share that with the world. And that's one of the things that rap provides for hip-hop, and rap provides for communities of color. It provided an avenue to share our stories. And so that's just got connected. I noticed one thing that a lot of people had in common. Music soothes. I don't want to say the savage beast, but but I just couldn't help it. But music soothes even the people that you think cannot be soothed.
It evoked a real pride when those kids on the yard would hear Long Beach, Compton, South Central.
Right, when they would hear their neighborhoods or certain terms or streets or people names.
It connected them to home.
It connected them home, a place that a lot of them would never see again because they had life sentences or 25 lives. But the only thing that connected them home was the music. And I used to watch these music videos with ECE and Dr. Dre and all those guys. And they were selling millions of records without even airplay. That just word of mouth took them. And I just thought this was something that was growing legs.
So you were looking for an opportunity like that anyway.
Right.
And so when David Kennedy, your then attorney, brought Suge Knight to see you in prison.
Well, I asked him to bring him to see me because he managed Dr. Dre. But I had been watching everything that was taking place, and I said, I need to talk to him. And that's how that relationship started.
So you gave him $1.5 million to start Death Row?
Yeah, it took a few weeks. We sat down, we talked about how we could build a company. And Death Row became a subsidiary of Godfather Entertainment. And because of my background, even though this money, so I want the world to hear this, did not come from drug money, because this was from a legitimate property that I sold, that I used the money for. And so that's why when later on, when they tried to take the company, they couldn't, because it was from a legitimate source.
So the lore is that you had this black phone in your studios, and it was to be completely free. So when you called from prison,
nobody could get on the phone because I would call and talk to the artist and talk to him.
So you were building the company from behind bars.
Collectively with everybody, yeah.
But California state law says you're not allowed to operate a business from behind bars. So how'd you get around that?
But here's the thing. You can always be a consultant. So I didn't take direct ownership. So you can't start a new company while you're in prison. So I had other people to do it. And I was the consultant. That's legal.
So with your acumen and your consulting, you gave birth to this thing called gangster rap in California.
Well, I think the media called it that, but I think people embraced it. But I really consider it reality rap. It's the reality, good, bad, or indifference, that's being talked about in the community. And that's what that was. It would talk about things that local channels or more established medias did not.
It gave voice to the heart and soul of a community that had no voice anywhere else. You had Dre's The Chronic album. Snoop's Doggy Style. All Eyes on Me by Tupac Shakur. Raking in hundreds of millions. Talk to me about the colossal trilogy and the black power and dominance of Death Row at that time. I mean, it was unprecedented, no?
Yeah, it was the engine that changed the music business.
And changed Interscope, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Interscope invested in Death Row, but Death Row gave Interscope some real meaningful music. A power. It became an engine for Universal. In terms of its market share, was increased because of the relationship with Interscope and Death Row. And so that opened it up for Def Jam and all these other companies to come and make the same kind of deals or better deals or continue what Death Row had started.
It was game-changing.
It's game-changing. Death Row has affected the whole gamut of the music business.
Death Row was, continuing to have its star shine. Marion Suge Knight was becoming more and more controversial, adopting this gangster rap kind of persona. He went on the cover of Vibe magazine. Did you know that, his violent tactics, his ego, etc., was getting off the chain and was jeopardizing the brand you had built in Death Row? Did you try and intervene?
Of course. I think Suge Knight was really smart, and he did some really creative things in the beginning. I just think that he got lost in the process. That's what I say. I don't really want to discuss him too much.
Have you been in contact with him since he's been behind bars?
No, but we used to be friends. I think maybe we used to be partners. We knew each other. But we got disconnected. Money just make you bigger, whatever you are. So, no, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just keeping it real that some people, like me, I always see money as a tool. It's never been my God. It's just something I always believe that could be used to help change situations. And some people walk different and talk different and act different because of it. And that's a recipe for disaster.
Let's talk about some key moments in the downfall of Death Row and real controversy for hip-hop in general. 1995 Source Awards at Madison Square Garden, defining moment. Dre had won Producer of the Year. He gets on stage with Snoop to a mediocre reception. And Snoop gets up there and goes, "What, you don't love Dre? You don't love Snoop?"
Wait. The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg?
Puff Daddy comes up after that, and he was also disparaged by Suge Knight that night. And he says, "There's no problem with East Coast, West Coast rap."
Contrary to what other people may feel, I would like to say that I'm very proud of Dr. Dre, of Death Row, and Suge Knight for their accomplishments. And all this East and West that needs to stop.
How significant was that night in the realm of Death Row's demise?
I think that it fueled a non-necessary war that really was about something else.
What was it about?
When Puffy came out and went on and did his own thing with Clyde Davis and came out with Bad Boys, I think Suge had a moment of reflection. I mean, like, wow, I could have had this kid. I could have worked with him. And instead of taking his hat off to him and says, "You're doing good," he felt some type of, I don't know, maybe the word jealousy. I don't know what it was that caused him to attack this man verbally and disparagingly when he was just doing great work. The East Coast, people started the rap game. Everybody know they did. But at that time, the West Coast was dominant in sales and profile. And so there was no reason for Suge to even do that. All he had to just keep putting out good records. But what he did is essentially gave Bad Boy, Puffy more fuel. The whole East Coast got behind him. He created the resurgence of the East Coast music. But what I like to say to you, it's the same way Snoop was that day, he is today. He was the voice that needed to be there that night, that spoke to the people. You don't love us?